These days, it's either really hard or really easy to get people to believe you. Either you are making a claim that goes against a person's original understanding of the topic, and thus they fight you with all of their might, despite whatever evidence you may present to prove your point, or you are making a claim that dips into an area in which they have little to no knowledge, and thus they take your word at face value immediately, even if you have no evidence to support your view. As one can imagine, this poses a problem in a world where we have at our fingertips the ability to connect with billions of people all around the globe in an instant. Of course, just making the claim isn't a good way to convince people, but today I'm going to focus less on the argumentation and more on the process of believing. Misinformation can and does spread and potentially cause harm when people cannot tell what evidence to believe and what to reject. Fortunately for the both of us, I don't have to tackle this problem exactly. Instead, I'm going to discuss a bit of a parallel to this problem in the world of Pokemon. No, not the main series Pokemon games where you get badges and gotta catch them all and yada yada yada. The literal Pokemon world, in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, the Explorers series specifically. We're not exactly going to learn how to fix the problem of miscommunication across the internet, but we will learn a bit about the nature of trust. As expected, spoilers for the Mystery Dungeon Explorers games. Though the good news this time around is that even though these are sequels, they have no spoilers for past games in the series. Though you definitely should check them out! The focus of this discussion will be on the main plot lines of the Explorers titles, and thus will not include any additional content from Explorers of Sky. Without further ado, let's dive into the analysis. Starting off, let's take a look at what happens in the game. I'll try to keep this summary brief so that we can focus primarily on the analysis. So a human gets turned into a Pokemon and loses their memory, whereupon they meet a timid Pokemon with the dream of becoming an explorer. After some shenanigans involving a personal treasure, the two form an exploration team at the local guild. After building up their reputation as explorers and training, the two join the guild on a group exploration of one fog-bound lake, where they collectively discover the existence of a time gear. The player learns from their partner that the 5 time gears govern the flow of time, which has apparently been out of whack recently. And after the expedition, the two meet a quote-unquote famed explorer Dusknoir, who, after helping them in a mission and being an all-around nice dude, reveals that he was sent from the future to stop the Pokemon Grovyle, also from the future, from stealing the time gears and paralyzing the planet. Grovyle is captured, and just as he and Dusknoir are returning to the future, the latter pulls the player and partner into the wormhole. Shenaniganery happens in the future that reveals that Dusknoir is actually working with Primal Dialga, a berserk time deity, and Grovyle was trying to get the time gears in the present to restore Dialga's crumbling tower, which was the true cause of the planet's paralysis. The player, partner, and Grovyle unite to return them to the present and try to restore the flow of time, during which it is revealed that the player was Grovyle's human partner. Once back, the trio acquires the time gears again and uncovers the route to Dialga's tower, which it turns out required that personal treasure of the partners from back at the start. Dusknoir attempts to stop them again, but Grovyle throws himself and Dusknoir back into the future, and the remaining duo continues on to restore the tower after a battle with an enraged Dialga. As the pair returns home, the player disappears in flashes of light because they now are from a timeline that no longer exists. They come back because Dialga says so, though. That's the end of the first storyline, but not quite the ultimate end of the story. After a while, the main pair graduates the guild, briefly raises a child, and starts having weird dreams. The both of them dream that a deity named Cresselia tells them that since they have messed with time so much, they are causing a distortion in space as well, and thus will slowly rip the world apart. This causes them to consider suicide, yikes, but after confronting the deity of space, Palkia, and discovering that the Cresselia they met earlier was an illusion created by Darkrai, deity of nightmares, their faith in themselves is renewed and they venture off to stop Darkrai. When confronting him in his crater, Darkrai reveals that he caused Dialga's tower to crumble. The player briefly experiences an illusion wherein the partner joins Darkrai but breaks out of it, and together with Palkia and Cresselia, they send Darkrai through a time portal that will destroy his memory just like what happened to the player. Wow, that was long. Fortunately for us, the story is most of what we are going to discuss today. The basic gameplay, music, and visual presentation are fairly neutral in contribution to the theming of the game, or at least the theming that I'm going to talk about, so they are less pertinent to bring up in this particular discussion. Note, this does not mean that I dislike those aspects, just that they do not play a big role in either proving or disproving what I'm choosing to focus on, so touching on them only briefly will suffice. Honestly, I absolutely adore all of those qualities, especially the music. Bonus points if you go listen to the soundtrack after this, it's fantastic. If, throughout the course of the discussion, you think of something that should be brought up, either in favor of or against my points, feel free to bring it up in the comments. Regardless of personal opinions, however, the center of this discussion is the theme of trust. What influences how people trust each other, how do people come to believe in others, and how that sense of trust can be used to confront real-world problems. We will examine how the two main characters' sense of trust develops from start to finish, and to do this, I've divided the plot into three loosely defined arcs. The beginning of the game to the end of the Fogbound Lake expedition, the meeting of Dusk Noir to Grovile's sacrifice, and the end of the first main storyline to the end of the last main storyline. So, let's see what we learn. When the two main characters first meet each other, they have no reason to band together whatsoever. One has no memory and a new body, while the other has a goal that is completely unrelated to the plight of the first. The meeting was pure chance, and the only reason the pair sticks together beyond that meeting is because the partner's relic fragment is stolen in front of them, and the player feels obligated to help retrieve it. This operation is entirely based on blind faith. The player trusts the partner's intentions, and the partner trusts the player's story about being transformed into a Pokemon, both without any solid evidence to prove either claim. This turns out to have been a good gambit simply because of the benign nature of the duo. Having discovered each other in benevolent circumstances, the original seed of trust is nurtured further when it becomes clear that they share a significant portion of their moral values. Once the pair officially joins the Exploration Guild as members, they feel secure in their practice of faith-based trust, as it has gotten them from 0 to 60 on their path to becoming competent explorers in a matter of a couple days. The duo soon learns that their faith cannot carry them through every trial, however, since their first outlaw apprehension mission turns quickly into a betrayal. One of the friends the pair makes in the town surrounding the guild is a Meryl and a Zuro, who meet a kindly Drowsy offering to help them find a precious item of theirs that was lost in a dungeon outside town. When the partner sees that Drowsy's picture is on the outlaw notice board, the pair immediately rushes to the aid of Azuro, who is taken alone by Drowsy to a remote dungeon for his own skeevy purposes. This situation forces the main duo to come to grips with the reality that there are people at large who take advantage of others' good faith for their own benefit. The duo, of course, doesn't give up their faith, but this is a step towards the realization that experience and evidence are a necessary part of earning trust, the fact of which is cemented in their heads soon after this encounter with Drowsy. When a new exploration team with dastardly intent called Team Skull joins the guild, the main duo distrusts them immediately because two of them were the ones who stole the partner's relic fragment. What follows is a series of events that convince the other guild members of the new team's good intentions at the secret expense of the main partners. Throughout this time, the player and partner view the new team acting against the goodwill of the guild, but have no way of proving the claims, as Team Skull always leaves a sore lack of evidence. In fact, the duo's supposed poor performance almost gets them excluded from the guild expedition to Fogbound Lake, but ultimately they are allowed to join, after which the new team exits the narrative due to the reveal of their malicious intent to the guildmaster. Such a sequence of events serves to solidify what the apprehension of Drowsy began, that pure, faith-based claims will not be enough to garner widespread trust regardless of their truth or falsehood. This leads the player and partner to understand the value of evidence in working to build trust, but not quite the extremes to which evidence and experience can be taken, if they're taken at face value. Soon after the expedition is concluded, the main cast is introduced to Dusk Noir, and the problem of Grovile stealing time gears shifts to the forefront. Before the guild is officially tasked with catching the thief, the player and partner once again set off to help Meryl and Azuriel recover their precious item, for real this time. They fail to realize that this is a trap set by Team Skull, however, and are nearly overpowered along their way. Piecing together the danger therein, Dusk Noir comes to their rescue. I'd give more detail, but it's not particularly important how he does it, and I've done enough summary as it is. Having done so swiftly, successfully, and without prompting, Dusk Noir wins the duo's complete trust and admiration. This one definitive act is a great example of how quickly trust can develop. Despite appearing from nowhere and not revealing his intentions, Dusk Noir's care for the well-being of the main players earns not only their affection, but yours as a new player. You subconsciously think, Someone so apparently renowned who came to my rescue in such a way must be one worth trusting. This thought is what allows Dusknoir to spin the truth against Grovile so that even when he's caught, there would be nothing he could say, truthful or otherwise, that would convince the masses of Dusknoir's true intentions. As the main team soon finds out, this reality is the true disaster, as it allowed the machinations of Primal Dialga to continue. At this point, the team is convinced not only of Dusknoir's false intentions, but also that his actions so far explicitly prove that he is the good guy in the scenario. Their dependence on experience guides them to conclusions made from incomplete pictures. They've tried to convince people to trust them using only their faith, and now when they bet on someone else whose reputation led them to a fast bond, they were blindsided. Nothing shows off the cognitive dissonance this brings about better than the partner's desire to go back to Dusknoir and Dialga to demand the truth. Even knowing that they would be caught and executed, the partners still can't accept that things are not always as easily explainable as they may first seem. The pair has to once again rely on their sense of faith, now with a healthy dose of skepticism, to bring them and Grovile back to the present in a desperate bid to reverse the effects of the planet's paralysis. After all the hardship they had to go through before the capture of Grovile, from their harassment in the guild to their rescue to the efforts of catching Grovile in the first place, everything they thought they had learned about how to trust and be trusted by people has been metaphorically thrown out the window. Grovile's sacrifice for the pair of them then affirms to the duo that they have in fact made the right choice. Their inherent faith combined with an ability to judge words beyond face value now is what makes them so uniquely capable of restoring hope to the world. Before we move past the first main storyline, I'm going to take the opportunity to acknowledge that yes, I have skipped over a good deal of content, but as before, it isn't incredibly important to today's topic. I'm talking about a pretty specific reading of these major arcs, quote-unquote. A lot of other nuances in the game are still present and still valid, but are less important to the analysis I'm proposing. Back to the topic at hand, though. Having officially saved the world from being paralyzed, and having learned how to utilize their wisdom and skill, does not mean that our main team is exempt from challenges that may arise. Most events after the main storyline are isolated, and while there are examples that further my supposition about their new nature of trust, the real challenge for the team comes with what I am arbitrarily calling the Dark Dreams storyline, because I made up the name off the top of my head just now and it sounds dope. The fact that this sequence brings dreams both to the player and to the partner separately allows for a subtle but powerful separation to form between them. Being told that your existence is actively harmful is hard enough when heard from your own mind. But when you receive visions from someone else telling you that, and it gets corroborated by your friend, it's beyond debilitating. Now, I don't want this to turn into a heavy discussion that I did not intend it to be, so let's turn our attention to why the team knew that these accusations were false. Aside from simply holding on to hope, they are driven to find out the full truth directly from the Pokémon who govern the domains of space and dreams. Knowing that they've been cunningly tricked before, they realize it is their duty to uncover every side of the situation before taking irreversible action, instead of just taking the dreams at face value. Thus, Darkrai is successfully rooted out as the true cause of their nightmares, and they embark on a quest to halt his machinations, acutely aware of the possibility that he will set illusory traps for them upon arrival. The gang's final test of trust comes just before the fight with Darkrai himself. The player receives a vision of the partner giving up the cause and joining Darkrai, claiming it to be completely hopeless to fight against him. Drawing on their faith in the partner, their past knowledge of Darkrai's illusions, and their expectation of a dangerous trap, the player renews their resolve and chooses to disbelieve the illusions, foiling Darkrai's plan and allowing the pair and Cresselia to finish him once and for all. A perfect display of the synergy between faith, experience, and skepticism. Throughout this whole video, I've talked about trust as if there are a few distinct options, and one must choose which is best to use in a given scenario. But what I believe this game shows us is that no such divide exists. It's a construct of our own design. People think you are either too gullible by having faith in everyone and believing everything that is told to you, or they think you never trust anyone or anything because you like to be skeptical. As we are shown from the progression of this game's main cast, this is simply untrue. There exists a sort of spectrum of trust that blends faith, evidence, experience, and skepticism, and it is only by making mistakes, or watching others make them, that we learn how best to balance these tenets in a way that allows us to make complete, informed judgments. That's not to say that we should expect to reach some ambiguous point of enlightenment when we can perfectly assess the character of every new face or idea to cross our path. But we can push ourselves to get better at overcoming challenges that exercise our mental fortitude. That is how this game speaks to me, and I hope that you see it as inspiring as I do. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'd love nothing more than to hear your opinions on both what I've said and what I've not said. Also, huge thank you to YouTuber Theagu. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I've not met them, but credit for all of the cutscene footage you saw goes to them. As mentioned briefly at the start of the video, I do plan on returning to this game in some capacity by covering the special episodes from Explorers of Sky. I've got gears turning for a few different ideas that aren't just 15+ minute analyses, but they'll be in the works for a while. In the meantime, keep an eye out for upcoming analysis videos. As the school year rolls around and ramps up, I'm hoping to release them roughly once a month, but seeing as how a lot of work goes into these, it could be a bit longer. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay analytical.